All right, good morning, everyone. We along. I think you can hear, but if you don't, mind. This Pastor Jim. We are teaching anything new. Everything in here is pretty repurposed. Try not to. Week. Oh, that was last week. Lunch one day, kind of discussing in this class. A discussion came up. First, maybe politics should come later. On what is a worldview. Some questions, the test of time. Questions had answered last week, very unfortunate, are the chief stands the test of time. Right? That's a question. Are the Dallas is going to really knock it? Jerry Jones. Probably not. That test of time. Stand the test of is who am I and why am I? Can give all sorts of answers to this question when they're asked, am I? I could tell you I am from, I was born in Baylor and Dallas, Oak, which except person from Wiley, which also knows. So it's okay. East, I'm further west. That's all you need to know. There we go. Now we've got our little. And that doesn't. That is a description of me. But if I told you my name is William Anthony Shaw and Shaw, more of an explanation of what is my purpose. I use a lot of sports. So I play podcast, and he said, and I asked myself, what do you do when you're? What purpose do you have when you're of a nation? Their purpose, go to the time card down at or when you stop working. Like to that they can't answer in many institutions that teach them they can't. And for a moment that if to live. But if we that philosophical a favorite body loves the Lion King, right? We love and going on his head, and we love philosophical talks to he's saying because he's like 9 years old. Can't the circle of life because it's a this. Hear the song most of the time because but the reality, if that is true, and we simply eventually our ancestors, and then Lucy, this missing link, came along, and then we became Neanderthals, and then eventually we discovered, I don't know what it is about fire, but we became a civilized person. If that is the case, there's no purpose in life. The reason there's no purpose in life, if that is the case, is because the reality of a creator completely out of. On your sheets for a moment, you will see that before we can answer the question, why are we here, which is the what is our purpose, we must first ask the question, where did we come from? The two are tied closely together. And a few years ago, I was still a part of this over here in the Metro MCG. We went through Focus on the Families. Now, for those of us who were still a part of that, that feels like a time ago that we went over that. And in this series, you're introduced to this guy by the name of Carl Sagan. Now, Carl Sagan is a well-known, or was a well-known atheist. He's since passed away. But Carl Sagan made an interesting statement one time, and he said that the cosmos are all there is, all there was, and all there ever will be. Well, consider these words for a moment from the father of this belief, Charles Darwin himself. According to Charles Darwin, the true purpose of man is this: the love for all living creatures is the most noble attribute of man. Now, on its face, that sounds like a good statement. Do we love all living creatures? Yes, we do. However, when you further evaluate this statement, I would suggest it actually brings about more questions than it does answers. For example, if we were to ask Charles Darwin, well, why do we love all living creatures? Is there a hierarchy to this love of living creatures? How do we love all living creatures? If everything is just a happy accident, and yet the highest attribute, the most noble attribute of man is the love of all living creatures, why? How do we do that? Do we love different type of creatures in different ways? I would suggest to you the answer to that question is yes. We do not love our animals, though we love them as much as we love our own children. We do not love all children the same way that we love our own children. There is a hierarchy to this love. If we're just happy accidents, you can't answer the question, how do we love all living creatures? Because there's really no reason to. So although the statement is a true statement, there has a hint of truth to it. It's actually false. We believe that we should love creatures because we're called to have dominion over all living creatures. Darwin, a lot of times if you want to tell how something is false, you look at the starting point, which then gives you the point. Darwin's starting point is with the creation. So his ending point is with creation. What makes a Christian worldview different is that our understanding of the created order begins with the Creator. So if you begin with the creation, you're on the ground. So giving you to say that you can't look at the grandeur of certain things and be moved by it. I'm curious this morning. How many people have ever been to the Redwood Forest? Has anybody been to the Redwood Forest? Niagara Falls? All right, the Grand Canyon. Got a lot of travelers here. Yellowstone. Has anybody ever been to Yellowstone where there's an active geyser? You see the grandeur of that, and you're amazed. You're amazed at how great and magnificent all of this stuff is. Has anybody ever seen a bison in the snow? All of these things are amazing, right? You see this giant, powerful bison, and then you look at it covered in the snow, and it's like, man, it just looks cool. You have all of these things that God has created, and yet there's a sense in which we can say, along with David, when I look at your heavens, the work of your fingers, it brings about a question. And it is the question that's in front of us today. What is man that you are mindful of him? And you have this recognition that as glorious as Niagara Falls is, as majestic as these redwood trees are, they are not created in God's image. You are. We are. The greatest, most majestic thing that you can think of in your mind cannot know God on a personal level. And you can. So if we understand that we can know God on a personal level, then it's easier for us to approach the question, what is our purpose? Why are we really here? It's really interesting. I've been training somebody this week at work, and part of this training, we attend these little huddle meetings at 8:45 in the morning, and on Fridays we watch these little pep talk videos. Most of the time they're TED Talks. And this Friday, it was on philosophy. So I joked around with my coworkers. I said, you guys didn't know you were going to get a short philosophy class at work today, did you? Now, the philosophy class in this TED Talk was all about the idea of time management. And it sought to answer the question, why are we here? And he did a good job until he got to a certain point. And the point that he messed up was the idea of death. Who would have thought? Secular philosophy missing the point of death. His point went like this. Everyone has an end date. That's true. We don't know when our end date is. That's true. Now here's where he got it wrong. A little boy asked his mother, he told this story, Mom, why do you and Dad have to work if all you're gonna do is die? Now that's a very inquisitive question. Believe it or not, Meredith has asked that question. The answer went something like this. I don't know, because that's a part of life. There's nothing false about that statement. The question is, why do you not know? And the reason that they don't know, the guy went further and he tried to explain this, is simply because that's what humans do. Now you can look at that and find that funny and find that not very intellectual, whatever you might say, and yet the reality is, and Chipper would know this from studying it, that is the case of almost all secular philosophy. Why are we here? Ultimately, we don't know. We're here. We exist. And that's it. And the reason that they think that way is because they have the same problem that the Darwinian evolutionists have. And that is that they begin with themselves instead of beginning with God. It's interesting that when you read, the more I read the creation account in Genesis 1 and 2, and then see the fall in Genesis 3, the more convinced I am that this is true. It's very interesting that when you get to all of this created order, you see the trees, you see the water, you see the fish, you see the animals, and then you see the creation of Adam. And that's not to say that God wasn't personal with the rest of creation. But when you get the words of God breathed life into man, we're the only created being that's said of. Everything else, it is good, right? God is relishing in his work of creation. Here's Adam. It's not good that man should be alone. I'll make him a helpmate. Ask the Darwinian evolutionist, what's the point of a woman? I don't know. She exists. That's great. We can answer that question because our starting point is God and our ending point is God. The great thinkers of our day and the great thinkers of antiquity have all started with this question, from where did we come? Some of them got it right. Many of them got it wrong. The ones who got it right, we listen to. The ones who got it wrong, you read about. They dominate philosophy. There are far more people that sought to answer this question and got it wrong than there was who got it right. Vodi Bakum stated when discussing the idea of philosophy in a joking manner, but I think that it's true, is that if you've only had one semester of philosophy, you should not be able to talk about it. And I think that's true, because it is true that if you've only taken one semester of philosophy, by the end of it, you're pretty messed up. I don't know anything. Everything that I thought that I knew, I don't know. But the reason they don't know it is because they are taught and they understand that a lot of philosophy gets it wrong because of where their starting point is. Christianity gets it right because our starting point is not with us. If your starting point is with you, you're going to be messed up. And there's a reason for that. The writers of the Westminster Confession of Faith did a fascinating job when they discussed this idea of what is man's purpose. All of us could answer it. It's the very first question found in most catechisms, not just for adults, but children as well, and that is, what is the chief end of man? Man's chief end is to glorify God and to enjoy Him forever. Now that might be a simplistic statement that we find cliche because we say it all the time. But the reality is nevertheless there. Man's ultimate job, his ultimate function, is to bring God glory. That's why he exists. And if that is the reason that he exists, then everything that he does in life has meaning. It has purpose. I once had a basketball coach that came in. We had a rough game. We got beat pretty bad. And before he ran us to death, he asked, "What is the purpose of a team?" Here we are. I'm a freshman. I'm 14 years old. I don't have any idea. I played sports my whole life. I don't know. To play together. Well, what does that mean? I don't know. I'm looking at all the seniors. Y'all should know this. You've been with them for 4 years. I don't know, coach. You're going to tell us anyway. The purpose of a team is to move and work together. The one who has the ball does not have more importance than the one that's running around the court. And when you play like that, you play with a purpose. You play for the man next to you. You play for the name on the back of your jersey. That's what you play for. One of the sad realities today is that if you were to go and ask this question, even in many mainline evangelical churches, of what is the purpose of man? What is our purpose? You would likely get a lot of answers. Some of them would be true. But then you ask them a different question. Why is that our purpose? Because you will get some that are on my list. There's 4. I've narrowed it down to 4. There could be, this list is not exhaustive. But you would get answers like, well, we're created to work. Okay, that's why. That's what the little boy was asking his mom. Why are we created to work when all we're going to do is die? We're created to serve one another. Okay, well, why? Why are we created to serve one another? What's the purpose of us serving one another? Those are all questions that we can ask, and the sad part about it is a lot of people can't answer that. Because in the back of their mind somewhere, they're thinking through that in a way that is just about them. It's not about God's glory. It's about, what do I get out of it? Francis Schaeffer once said that if he had an hour-long flight and was able to share the gospel with somebody, this kind of surprised me the first time I heard it. He would spend the first 50 minutes explaining God as a creator. I thought to myself, okay, that's an interesting gospel presentation. So I'm going to leave 10 minutes for the rest of it. 50 minutes explaining God as creator. And then it dawned on me that one of the most interesting realities about many conversations that surround evangelism and apologetics, we can go through an entire gospel presentation and never mention God as creator. Here's Schaeffer's point. If we can have man understand that God is creator, that he has created them, And he created them for a specific reason. And then man, out of his own heart, sins against this creator. Then it leaves man guilty before not only the creator, but this creator as a judge. And that he will judge them. And that in that judgment there is mercy because God sent forth his own Son to die and take the place of this man. Francis Schaeffer is doing something interesting because he is forcing man to understand that they weren't some happy accident. They were indeed created by a God that they will answer to. And that this God is full of mercy and grace. It's interesting when you hear Sagan say that the cosmos are all there was, all there is, and all there ever will be. And as glorious as space and the stars and our solar system is, space is not the crowning glory of God. Niagara Falls, as beautiful as it is not the crowning glory of God. A bison in the snow, though I love to see it, is not the crowning glory of God. Man is the pinnacle of God's creation. We are created to glorify God and enjoy him forever. So how do we do that? That's the question in front of us today. What is our purpose? In other words, how do we glorify God and enjoy him forever? And believe it or not, the first way to do that is through work. God created us to work. When God put Adam in the midst of the garden, he was called to have dominion over it, to take care of it. It takes work. Now, back then, before the fall, it didn't feel like work. Right? It was easy. The ground did whatever it did. Whatever Adam wanted it to do, it did. After the fall, it became hard. Now, there are a couple of reasons that we think negatively about work in not just Christian circles, but in secular circles as well. And that is because, especially in the church, we have bought into this, and I was guilty of this one time, this lie that there is a difference between the secular and the sacred. So you should aspire to a sacred job. You should aspire to be a pastor. You should aspire to be a teacher. You should aspire to all of these things. Well, how do I drive a truck to the glory of God? How do I give people electricity to the glory of God? Some of us, like myself, only have a job as a product of the fall. People don't need insurance if there's not sin. Houses don't burn to the ground. Pipes don't explode. People don't die in car accidents without the fall. How is my vocation right now as a student? How do I learn to the glory of God? If you've never read it, a great book, I've written before, I read it when I was going through some difficulty at a job, of Jim Veith's great, masterful book, God at Work. Jim Veith deals with this idea, not to be mistaken for Jim Vians, although Jim Vians probably could write this as well. The idea of secular is why a lot of people struggle with man's purpose and work. Jim Vians down that dichotomy and say there is no such thing as secular. There's no such thing as this. Everything is sacred. How do I talk to people about their insurance in a sacred manner? Do I recognize that my job is strictly a product of the fall? Well, that's one way. But the other way is to just be honest with them, to be a man of integrity. To say, hey, look, the price is the price. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I'm not going to try to make it sound better than it is. This is what it is. This is how it works. Sometimes you can think, okay, well, driving a truck does use of my prefrontal cortex. It doesn't take much here. Be a good engineer of math. Cortex. Man. Okay. I don't know. Created me for only mental capability. Maybe people here who one day called. He spoke to wonderful because there are marriage. We have kids. We come together. We have children. I'm not children go away. Same. Marriage is not based upon my kids. Behind in the midst of something very interesting. What children is in sovereign and we can laugh about it, messed up parents. Son, daughter, you're messed up. You're a sin. Trust, love, so thankful. It seems like sometimes we're do this. Is trying to speak our discussing did in time became statements the one who ordained marriage and we speak because to you because I'm dying. That's too much. I is this week when watching secular music that I content and throw it the windows addicted becoming some bored because common Father up above that the Lord your God Let's pray. Father, thank you for your truth. Every is true. Glory so that he could spread your glory to others. So help us live out this purpose every day of our lives. In Christ's name.